excited to have another high school student volunteer to do a Talk Tuesday. So whenever that happens, people come to me and ask if they can do a Talk Tuesday. I'm like, of course, this is great. So Dima is going to give us the student perspective on the research that she's done about media. So very excited to have her here. Welcome, Dima.
So hello everyone, and today I'm going to be talking about modern media and its effects on adolescents. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm a senior, and I moved here last year, and I lived all of my life in Los Angeles. So I'm very familiar with modern society and culture in America, and that's like why I did so much of my research. And I've studied a wide variety of different types of media. So when I say modern media, I'm not just talking about social media. I'm talking about books, television, shows, novels, and social media. And some of the topics I've done work on, if you guys know who Colleen Hoover is, I talked about the book It Ends With Us, and she recently came out with a movie. I've talked about Barbie and the stereotypes in Barbie and how it kind of encourages like negative body image, even though the whole point of the movie was to accept and love who you are. And then I do a lot of work on TikTok and social media. And then here are some of my credentials. So I've done interviews with Dr. Romer from the University of Pennsylvania, and we talked about how gun violence is romanticized in the media. And then with Dr. Vasi from USC, I did a lot of research with how vaping and e-cigarettes are promoted on TikTok and how people are paid to promote younger audiences to vape. And overall, my goal of this talk is to inform you guys of the psychology behind how adolescents think. And I want to remind you all that you are all also susceptible to modern media, and you're not perfect. No one's perfect, but we're just a little more affected by it. So I'm going to explain the teen brain first, and then I'll get into the media itself. But the problem with us is our prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop until the age of 25. According to the National Institute of Health. So this means that we have less control of our emotions, worse problem solving, slower processing, lower verbal comprehension, and poor memory. And the problem with this is the prefrontal cortex is in charge of your judgment and your emotions and your decision making. So every time you've gotten mad at your kid and told them, what were you thinking? They were probably not thinking. That's the issue. So go easy on them, don't get too mad at them. And another important part of the brain that we need to talk about is the reward pathway. And the problem with modern culture is that we are constantly getting dopamine released into our brain. And dopamine and serotonin are two different neurotransmitters that are released when you're doing something that is rewarding, makes you feel happy. And the problem is whenever we get on our phone, you're most likely getting dopamine released in your brain. Whenever you get on social media, you're doing something that is relaxing, makes you happy. When you come home from work, let's say, when you go home from work and you put on a show and watch a movie and you find yourself watching it for hours and hours, that's because so much dopamine is being released in your brain. And the problem with dopamine with teenagers is that it directly affects the prefrontal cortex, and which is in charge of your reasoning. So we're so surrounded by media and modern culture that dopamine is getting released all the time through TikTok and apps like Snapchat, Instagram, and these shows that I'm going to talk about with you today. So our reasoning is directly affected by all the dopamine that's being released. So yeah. So first, I want to ask you parents, how many of you are aware of the show Euphoria? Raise your hand. Wow, only 4? Okay. So basically, it's a show that has been trending for the past 4 years, and it's about a group of teenagers suffering from sexual abuse, drug abuse, overdose, and violence. And I'm really concerned that only 4 of you know about it, because I'm telling you that your kid has probably watched it or seen it or have heard things about it. And does anyone want to redeem themselves and raise their hand again? Because don't feel embarrassed. If you think your kid has watched it, can you raise your hand? No. You don't know? You don't know? Okay. Yeah, I was thinking maybe some of you, because of social desirability bias, you don't want to seem like a bad parent. But I'm telling you, your kid has most likely seen the show, because 80% of teens said they've seen some type of content regarding the show, ranging from pretty often to very often. So most likely your child has heard about this show or has seen it. And yeah, to talk about it a little more, it's about these like 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds living in America, and they're like portrayed as normal people, like people you'd meet in your everyday life, but they're going through like issues such as drug abuse, and most of the characters on the show use drugs. So what I'm going to talk about is how does that affect teenagers watching shows like this? So in my opinion, I think it glamorizes substance use, because if you look at the whole color scheme of the show, it's very vibrant, it's purple. Purple represents royalty, it's like a good feeling to see. You see a lot of glitter, and when teenagers watch something like this, they might associate it with something good. Because they're getting something pleasing to the eye, they might begin to think, oh, maybe this is something I should try. It looks cool when you see other teenagers doing it. And in this photo here, these two characters, they're on drugs. Like, I took this from a random episode. This is them showing how they're feeling, and you can see that they feel euphoric. The name of the show, they feel happy. And that's something maybe teenagers might look at and think, maybe I should try that because of how it's depicted on. And that's only one example of how it's glamorized. Another one is every character on the show is using drugs, but only the main character, Rue, ends up like getting addicted and then has to go to rehab, and then that's how they show how the effects of drugs on on her exactly. But every other person on the show is using drugs, and you see no effect, no negative effect at all. You don't see how it can be addicting. You just see that they're having fun and they're going to parties, and that seems normal for them. And if you guys know the show Gossip Girl, I'm sure you're aware of it. It's like a bunch of teenagers living in Manhattan, and they're getting drunk every weekend, and their parents have no idea what they're doing. They don't care. They're just going out and drinking and going to clubs. And that's another really trendy show. And now I'm going to talk about how it normalizes it. So first it makes it look really cool, and it makes like teenagers think maybe I should try it. And then it normalizes it because, again, every single person on the show, every teenager on the show has done drugs or is using drugs. And when I first watched this show, I was repulsed. Like, first episode, I was like, I can't watch this, it's way too much. And then I watched another episode, and another episode, and another episode, and then I was like, you know what, it's fine. Like, I can get used to this. So the more that you watch it and the more teenagers are exposed to things like this, they're going to start to think it's normal. And then there's actually a term in psychology, let me get it pulled up, the familiarity principle, which is that you're more likely to prefer something the more you're exposed to it. So the more that they're watching shows like this, and the more that they're choosing to engage in it, the more they're more likely to imply it in their own life and put it to their own standards. And the problem with this is that this is obviously a fiction show. But again, it's fiction, but it depicts normal teenagers in America doing normal things, and it's going to become to look normal to adolescents when they see it so much. And again, this is only one example of media. There's Euphoria, there's Gossip Girl, 13 Reasons Why. I can name infinite shows that have the same effect as Euphoria. Okay, now I'm going to talk about why Hollywood loves these types of shows, because money talks. No one wants to watch a movie about normal people. No offense. Like, I'm sure you're all normal. No one would want to watch a movie about my life. Like, I'm just a normal kid. But they're going to make way more money, like, making shows and movies off of kids that are doing crazy things. And that's what teenagers want to see. And that's because we are so used to receiving dopamine. We're so used to having to be excited by something. And our brains, we just want to feed off of content that is unrealistic. And that's a problem because you're going to start to think everything in your life has to be like these type of shows, like Euphoria. And that's going to cause teenagers to go out of their way and start acting like them and maybe using drugs. Not in Dubai, I would hope. I don't think that's possible in Dubai, but in the US, it would probably be more common. And another thing to point out is that an attractive cast is going to make more money because no one wants to watch ugly people act, you know. Most people don't want to watch ugly people act. So when you have America's sweetheart, Zendaya, having the main role as Rue in Euphoria, people are going to start to think, wow, Zendaya is very attractive, she's pretty, and she's doing these things. And they're going to start to associate what she's doing as a positive thing because she's attractive. And that's called the halo effect. So that's when you infer, because of one characteristic about a person that you like, you'll start to justify everything else that person does. So because people, mainly teenagers, think, wow, she's so pretty, I'm gonna start acting the way she does, I'm gonna start copying her mannerisms, I'm gonna start doing what she does. And even though she's just acting, she's an actor, her roles in these shows, in these movies, people are gonna look up to her and inspire to be like her because of who she is. So that's the problem with Hollywood. It's the fact that they are gonna make way more money off of things that are unrealistic, and they're gonna hire attractive people to do those unrealistic things. And those are two things that are gonna cause adolescents to act out what they see in real life. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about social media. You guys might be more familiar with this one. How many of you use Snapchat? Wow, okay. My parents don't use it either. They don't believe in social media. But
I know what's happening.
So this number right here is called a Snap score, and that goes up the more you talk to people and the more that you engage and you send photos and you have conversations with people. And this is kind of used as like a popularity number with teenagers, because the higher your number is, the more that you talk to people and the more that you're seen as popular. If you have a lower number, then you don't talk to a lot of people, and that's okay. But people start to compare their Snap scores, and they start to think, oh wait, is this person better than me? Do they talk to more people than me? And another problem with Snapchat is streaks. So what a streak is if you're talking to someone at least once a day for a long time, you're gonna build a streak. So that means you have to send a photo of yourself, or you have to be talking to them at least once a day to keep that streak. And streaks they cause serotonin because it's kind of a reminder for kids, like, this person cares about me and they want to talk to me every day and they keep in touch with me every day, and that's why I have a streak with them. And that causes little boosts of serotonin in the teen brain. And the problem with this is that, let's say your child loses a streak. Did you know that your kid might be paying money to save a streak? It costs $3 to bring a streak back, and that sounds really stupid because why would they care about that? It's a sign of friendship for many teenagers, and it's a sign that this person cares about me. So when a kid loses a streak, I've done this before with my best friend from Los Angeles. I've paid money to keep my streak with her because I want to show her, like, hey, I care about you and I'm keeping in touch with you every day. And when people begin to lose their streaks, they might think, oh, this person doesn't care about me anymore. They don't want to keep in touch with me anymore. And that's why Snapchat can cause a lot of anxiety. So the problem with apps like Snapchat is, although it'll cause temporary happiness through serotonin, it's going to cause a lot of anxiety in how your child thinks. So 70% of Snapchat users agree that Snapchat has negatively affected their mental health, and over 50% say that it makes them anxious, and over 60% have a short-lasting boost of artificial happiness when receiving a Snapchat. So in the short term, your child is really happy and they enjoy using Snapchat, but in the long term, it's going to hurt them. It's going to affect them because they care so much about the numbers in this app. And then the problem with TikTok. TikTok is a huge problem, and I'm a big fan of YouTube because of TikTok, and I'll explain why in a bit. But humans now have shorter attention spans than goldfish, if you didn't know. And I think I'm very proud to say that. But it's because we're so used to watching. TikToks are usually 10-second videos, they're very short videos, and they get to the gist immediately. There's no introduction, there's no conclusion, there's no, hi, this is who I am, this is what I'm talking about. TikTok just gives you like something, like a dance or someone talking for a short clip, and then you'll scroll and you'll find another video to watch. And that's what's called TikTok brain, which is like the fact that our attention is so low now because we're so used to receiving information in 5 seconds now. We get information way quicker, and we don't have to wait, we don't have to be patient. I don't know if you guys know, but if you ask your kid, if they're watching a video on YouTube, they're probably watching it on 2 times speed. They can't watch it at normal speed anymore because they're so used to receiving information quickly now, and that's what's called TikTok brain. So when you scroll on TikTok and you find a video that makes you laugh, that first initial video that you watch, a large amount of dopamine is going to be released into the brain, and then your brain's going to tell you, okay, keep doing whatever you're doing because it feels good, it's good for you. So you're going to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then by the time you're done, with TikTok, you probably spent 3 hours scrolling and you didn't even feel it because your brain is so preoccupied with the dopamine being released, and you just feel happy from wasting your hours on TikTok. And yeah, the amount of dopamine being released watching a video on TikTok is that's the same exact biological reaction when a person takes cocaine. It's the exact same thing. It's like a drug. It is a drug almost. And the reason that I prefer YouTube over TikTok is because YouTube videos they're usually 15 minutes long, 10 minutes long. There's an introduction, you know who's talking to you. There's a conclusion, there's maybe like a little text in the bottom of the video explaining what they're talking about. So that, like when someone watches a YouTube video, they're not gonna get what they want immediately. They have to wait and learn more about the person and who's talking before they understand what's happening in the video. So I definitely prefer, like I would say teenagers are better off using platforms like YouTube than TikTok. Okay, so what can you do as parents? So I'm sure you guys all just want to take your teens' phones and throw them in the backyard. That's not going to work at all. At what age is it okay to use media? So a lot of people like Bill Gates actually agree with me on this fact, and I've done my own research on this, but teens aged 10 to 13 are the most vulnerable to social media. So I would say that starting end of 8th grade or the middle of 8th grade is the best time to introduce media. And that's not just social media, but like watching shows, watching movies, and that's people like Bill Gates advocate for the same thing. He also says wait till 8. So wait till 8th grade, or at least a little until 8th grade, because that's when our prefrontal cortex has maybe constructed up enough to correctly absorb, not 100% correctly, but to get the gist of what's going on. And then the most important thing is that you should have an open relationship with your child where they feel like they can come and ask you questions about what they've seen online. Because I'm a teenager, I've done this myself. If you completely restrict your child and tell them, you can't use this app, you can't use this app, that's not gonna work. They're gonna find a way. They'll use their laptop and make an account. They'll take a friend's phone and make an account. They're gonna find a way to sneak around you, and that's why you shouldn't do that. So I would say, I'm not a professional. I'm just a teenager that knows how your kids are thinking, and I'm educated about it. So instead, encourage like an open relationship with your child where they feel like they can trust you and come ask you questions. So I would talk to them about the fact that media is not real life, and when they see things like Euphoria, they shouldn't apply it to their own lives, and they shouldn't start to think, I should start to act like these characters in these shows or in Gossip Girl. And likes can be misleading, so just because someone has a lot of likes doesn't mean that they're happier than you or they're a better person than you. And misinformation is everywhere, so make sure that they feel open enough to fact check, to go online on a government website or a trusted website, or come to you or any trusted adult to ask, what does this mean? Why did I see it online? And don't waste your day. Make sure they know that they can't waste their day passively scrolling, because your brain is wired, when you first get that first hit of dopamine, your brain is wired to take more and more of that, because it's going to start to think, I want more, it makes me happy. So you automatically, just by spending 10 minutes on TikTok, you're probably going to spend 3 hours on TikTok, because your brain is telling you, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. So I think those are important conversation topics that you should have with your child. And then again, you may be thinking, why would I be taking advice from a teenage girl? I've done the sneaking around. I've done all of it. My parents are gonna watch this, and they know it. They know it very well. And I just want to confirm that it's best to expose kids to media and ensure that they're well educated on it. So again, don't try to hide it from them. That's not gonna work in the long run. They're gonna sneak away. They're gonna find a way to do it behind your back. And again, it's not realistic to completely block off all media away from your child. So in my opinion, I think you'd feel better as a parent if your kid is coming up to you and you feel like they can trust you and come to you and ask you questions and say, why did I see this? Instead of you coming up to them, taking their phone from them and saying, why are you doing that and that and that? Because they're not gonna trust you anymore if you act like that with them. They will feel like, oh shoot, I have to hide everything I do from my parents now. So when your child comes up to you and says, Mom, I did something kind of bad, or a dad, like, don't get mad at me when I say this, try to not get mad and try to hear what they say and give genuine advice, because that's why they're coming to you. They're not coming to you to get a lecture, to get yelled at. Give them a lecture, but a nice one, you know? Just to educate them, and that's a way to keep an open, trusting relationship between a parent and a child with regards to media, and that's the best way for both the parent and the child. So my final disclosure, I'm not an expert. I'm just saying what I think, and I've done 2 years of research now on this topic. So I think I'm pretty well informed, but yeah, that's it. And this is my website and the QR code. I have like a blog, I have articles, I have my interviews. I'm publishing a book soon for young adolescent girls. So if you have a girl, maybe you'll want to show her the book that I'm publishing soon. But yeah, any questions?
Yeah. So I think this talk was really amazing. I learned a lot, and I love the fact that you broadened the horizon between just social media to get Netflix shows and even books, you know, things like that. I think what you also highlighted was the vulnerable age between 10 to 13, and then we start at 8. I'd love to, what I also find amongst teenagers is this extreme sense of agency and the ability to zoom out to say, this is not real, I get it. So I'd love to hear your perspective of how you became informed. And, you know, I think open conversations are very important, but are there any counterfactual, you know, social media that we could provide, you know, that then doesn't turn out to be a lecture? So, you know, what was your journey like in being informed, and yet you're able to step out and say, hey.
So I have a unique perspective because I grew up in Los Angeles, and I grew up with friends who, I didn't do this myself because I have parents who were very open and I could trust them, and they told me from a young age what was right and what was wrong, and that's why I think open conversations are important. But I grew up around people who maybe acted the way that the characters did in Euphoria. So I grew up very exposed to the environment, which is different from Dubai, but I was able to, because I had an open, close relationship with my parents, I was able to know early on from a young age what was right and what was wrong. And I felt like I could come and talk to them and tell them, hey, my friend is doing this, what do you think? And they would say, you know that that's wrong, and I'm not gonna tell you to stop being friends with them, but remember that you are your own person and you shouldn't relate to what people are doing in the media. And I wish I could say there was like a counteracting, but I don't think there is, unless maybe if you could find like a show or something that depicts like a normal teenager living like a normal life, rather than encouraging your kids to watch shows like Gossip Girl and Euphoria, then maybe they'll feel like they'll relate to that person more on the screen, and they won't feel like they have to change how they act and the things that they do because of what they're seeing online. So, yes?
Yeah, this has been great, and like it's interesting as a counselor, I talk a lot about these things, but it's so good to hear your perspective and your reality, because I think sometimes as adults, we're really detached from how you engage with all of this. I was wondering, so like now I know like some school districts in the US are saying like no phones in high school and stuff like that. From your perspective as a teen, is that something that is helpful? Is it not helpful? What are we missing when we just talk about that? What do you think?
I don't think that's helpful at all.
Yeah.
I think what I've learned as a teenager is that like teens are not gonna say okay and accept something. They're gonna go the more drastic route, and they're gonna do even crazier things than what you were trying to prevent by stopping something. So I think instead of taking away their phones, they should be definitely more active at school and tell them, like, do things like what I'm doing, like make them aware of the effects that having a phone has on a person, rather than just taking it away from them.
So, thank you very much. This is great, first of all. I want to hear a little bit from your experience personally and what you know. How important is the relationship at home to preventing your kids? Because being on social media is escapism as well. Watching these shows is like, I want to escape, right? I want to, and not in a bad way, it's just that I'm bored of my mundane life, and this is why I watch shows like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel, what's very important is that, like you said, you have a very positive relationship with your parents, but that you also feel loved and wanted and cared for, so that you don't end up escaping and hanging out with your friends. Because
Exactly.
when you said, you seem like you really respected your parents' advice and you had values that you took onto yourself, your family values. But not all kids do that, because some parents, espouse some values, but the kid doesn't feel loved or whatever, so they still want to just escape. So what do you know about that? What have you seen about that,
I think that before, like, a parent can go up to a kid and say, like, I want you to do this and this and this, and that's how you should act, you need to build, like, a trusting relationship outside of that. So I would say, like, let's say when you pick up your kid from school, most of the time they're probably on their phone. Maybe it's like a boring car ride back home. Maybe tell them, drop the phone, tell me about your day, what happened at school. Because when a teenager tells you something about their personal life, or actually any facts that they've learned, it most likely relates to something that they're going through. Or because we naturally like to talk about ourselves. And we might be a little more, like, secretive with parents, but, like, I would say just talking to your kid normally, like, on the car ride home, tell them, put your phone down, like, have a conversation with me, what happened today at school, tell me about something you saw in the news, tell me about something a friend said or a teacher said, something that happened. And that way, they're gonna slowly tell you more and more information, and then you're not just sitting there telling them, this is what you should be doing, and this is what's right and wrong. They start to feel like you're an actual person they can go to and confide in, rather than just, this is a person who wants to dictate my life. So yeah, I would say just building a more comfortable space for us. Yes? Yeah.
Lovely talk, thank you for that. And you can see the research and the knowledge that you have behind it, which is great, and I hope you keep building on it as you continue from here. Because I think this is something that's not going away.
Yeah.
And it's getting bigger. I have two observations or questions and comments. One is that I have a 6th grade girl, so I'm learning, and we were 3 boys growing up, so I knew arguably nothing about girls. And I never realized how much drama that there is amongst girls starting at a very young age, and how much clickiness and how much. So when you put that against this backdrop, and you say, okay, you're going to be connected, you're going to be communicating, you're going to have good values, and there's a very good sense of right and wrong, and I do the same thing and tell them to be their OG selves, and not try to be like someone else. But how much peer pressure do you see in your own, last, let's say 2 or 3 years, where the person is trying to do that, follow you, and but there's that whole table of girls sitting at lunch over here, and they're all talking about gossip or euphoria. Now, if that person doesn't feel part of that group because they're not talking about it, you'll get many types of kids, but one type will say, okay, I'm going to now watch the show even secretly so that I can actually participate and be part of the group. And then the other person is going to not do it but feel really left out and feel bad. So is that a scene that you see that is common, and what advice would you give a younger girl who's in middle school?
Okay, that's a tough one because you can't control how other parents are raising their kids, right? So if you have a parent, like if your daughter has a friend whose parent lets them do whatever they want, I don't know, because the problem with that, what you were saying, like choosing to like be excluded and fearing like you're missing out, that's a big problem with social media. Like your kid might start using Snapchat because there's a group chat on Snapchat that all of her friends use and she's not on it. So she might download it at the age of, what age is 6th grade? 10? 11, yeah. So they might, like 3 years earlier than they should, download an app that they shouldn't be using. In this case, I would say don't make your kid go find new friends, because that's really hard to do, especially like in middle school or 6th grade. I would say allow them to do allow them to be curious and make sure that you know what they're watching, especially at that age. Know what they're watching, know what they're doing, and educate them and make sure they understand that this isn't real life, and what they see online and what their friends are watching cannot be applied to their own lives. But yeah, I would say maybe in 6th grade, I'll like monitor them more. But yeah, I'm not an expert.
The second observation, which is for everybody here, especially the administration, is younger children look up to you guys, and I mean they look up to us in a different way. They look up to faculty in a different way. So at this age, for example, if we want to communicate something to our child that is not going to really be taken from us, even in middle and 6th grade, or 4th grade, 5th grade, we tell the teacher, parent teacher, can you kind of communicate the importance of this, because the teachers are on a pedestal, thankfully. I think it would be an interesting conversation for you to speak to the administration and see, is there a way for you to go and address the younger children? Because it means something totally different coming from you
Than from a parent.
than from a parent. And I think it's a very nice compliment to what we're trying to achieve here.
I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, I agree. Just to make them aware, like, one thing that, you kind of touched upon, but my major problem with these is the algorithms with a lot of these social channels. And it just feeds you what you look up. So you think the whole world is watching, frozen Jelly Bellies or whatever is in now. But it's not. You're just that's your world, because you gave, you did one search about Jelly Bellies, and and they think, yeah. So it's just feeding them the same
It's
stuff.
tailored for exactly what you want.
And not making them aware of, hey, other perspectives. And I think talking to them about that would be really powerful. Are you aware of this? Yeah, stuff like that.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It was a lovely talk. I walked in a few minutes late, and I just wanted to see if you can take a minute to just explain to us how you got here to this presentation and how you embarked on the research and what that looked like, if it was part of a class that you took, because that's a nice, I think it's a great project and very insightful.
Thank you. I started my research end of sophomore year. To be honest, that's when I was moving from Los Angeles to Dubai, and I wanted something to do in the summer to take my mind off of moving. And I decided that at first I was very curious about Colleen Hoover. Do you know who that is? The book, the author, Colleen Hoover?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. So I was curious because I love reading, and especially like romance books, like rom-coms. I love that stuff. So I was reading Colleen Hoover, and I noticed like a lot of trends in her books and how adolescents are obsessed with her work, and a lot of things that are being shown in those books are like promoting, in my opinion, like abuse in relationships and being okay with how like a man treats you because he's your husband or he's your boyfriend. So I was like a little curious about that. So then I started doing research about how books first, because my organization is called Book Talk Unveiled, and how books and social media that are being promoted to adolescents have harmful ideas behind them. And then I decided to expand my research to shows. I started looking at Euphoria, and then I started looking at social media. And then I decided like I'm not like the best person to do this research. So I decided to interview professors, and then I started working with USC, UCLA, Northeastern, UPenn. I have an interview with Stanford next week to talk about my research.
Did you called them? You just
I have.
you emailed, or was it part of the class, or did you have somebody advising you along the way?
I didn't know. I don't have any advisor, but my college counselor like helps me with a thing or two. But it wasn't for a class or anything. I just started it in the summer, and thank you. And I can pull the QR code up again, but everything is on my website.
Yeah.
And yeah, like all of my interviews are on the website. So if you want to watch like a professional professor or like someone educated about it, I've even interviewed owners of bookstores. because I have a lot of different perspectives. So yeah, I've done a lot of work.
Well done.
Thank you.
Zero, could you also?
Yes.
I'd be interested how your classmates and your friends react to you know, being so obviously so invested and committed to this. So you sure, I'm sure you probably share your research or even your opinions with your peers. Can you tell us a bit how how it's been received in your community?
I think the problem with teens is they're very aware of all of this, but they're okay with it. Because I'll tell my friends, oh, that's so true, and they'll tell me like, I kind of agree with that, but I'm not going to do anything about it. That's why parents need to be like more involved in telling them like that there's issues with being so involved in modern media. So a lot of teens are like, they know about it and they're aware. We're not dumb, but we're okay with it, and we've kind of accepted it because we live in a culture where technology is so like ingrained in everything. And now we have AI, and now there's new things being introduced every day that are more fictional and fictional and fictional, and that's what we're beginning to rely on. So teenagers don't really want to do anything about it because we're so reliant on this type of media.
How do you feel about, it's obvious, everybody is aware, as you put it.
Mhm.
How do you feel about, your peers knowing the influence it has on their psychological well-being, yet nothing is being actively done? How do you feel?
I'm disappointed in the fact that I've thought about this a lot, but there's really nothing like, other than being informed about it, society is going to progress, and this type of media is not going to stop. There's like, and I'm sure in 50 years it's going to become completely unavoidable, and it's going to be every part of our lives. And I think that psychologically we're going to start to adapt to it, and it's going to become our new normal. So maybe in 100 years, no one's going to see a problem with it because it's so normal. So
One more question.
yeah.
So then, do you think you're going to evolve from research into activism in the future? Do you think you're going to make that move? Or?
Maybe. I'm planning on med school. So I'm planning on learning more about like the biological and psychological effects of it on
Is that
people.
in neurology?
Yeah, maybe. But maybe activism in the future, we'll see.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dina, I'm certainly going to encourage a lot of my kids as well as my friends to take a look at your blog.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a counterfactual, just coming back. And I'm curious about the book that you're writing, and I'd love to see when it's coming out.
Yeah, it's like it's a short booklet. It's not like a long book, but it's a guide for girls. Guys can read it too if they want, but it's a guide for girls about, I address 3 different things. I talk about like body image in the media, and I talk about how like the media tells young girls to trust like men and engage in relationships with men that they shouldn't trust, and how that they romanticize like evil people. And there's one more thing I talk about. I talk about drug use too. That's like the most important thing for me. So I think that's coming out next week. It'll be posted on my website. Thank you. Yes?
Thank you, Dima.
Mhm.
You mentioned earlier just how important it would be to have an audience of younger students around, and I think that's an amazing suggestion. What else do you suggest that we can do as a school to help?
I think maybe during advisory, there should be, not just from me, but I think like a short presentation or a YouTube video, 15-minute video explaining, ironically, the effects of technology. That would help a lot for high school. I think middle school maybe what might need more attention. So I would say like having someone come and talk maybe during like an assembly, and a professional explaining this. Maybe me, but I'm not professional. So yeah.
During biology class, you can also then
Yeah.
explain dopamine can also be released during sports. There are other ways for dopamine and serotonin
Eating,
release.
having a sugary snack.
Thank you.
Yeah, anything.
There are
A roller
ways as
coaster.
well.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So from the books I've been reading or the parenting podcasts, most of them mention that teenagers blame their parents for giving them phones at an early age.
Mhm.
And they told them, we wish you did not, some of them did not give us phones that early, maybe by the age of 15 or 16, so that we can manage bullying, harassment, and so forth. So that was my intention. But my kids are 11 years old, and almost everyone they know already have a phone. And my challenge is, how can I stick to my plan and not to give a phone where he has access to social media and expose him to all that. So that's the thing I've been thinking about. How can I do that? I know I do not want to do otherwise, but how can I stick to that so that they don't feel like I'm the only one or I'm the peer pressure. So
I would say maybe if they're very, very desperate, I would say get them the phone, but have like screen time. So you can block like specific apps on your kid's phone. So let's say you only want them to use Messages or Snapchat or WhatsApp, those three. You can block as many apps from the App Store as you want, so they know, you know that they can't be looking at other things. And you can tell them like, hey, I'll give you this phone, but whenever I ask, I want to be able to see who you're talking to and the messages that you're sharing with other people and what you guys are talking about. So I would say if they're begging you over and over, get them the phone, but be very careful and strategic with like what they're doing on the phone and monitoring it because they're 11. I would say maybe at the age of 14, then that's when you can like start leaning off and saying, you know what's right, you know what's wrong.
I want to just add something briefly. So when we gave my son a phone, he was 11, he just turned 11, we made him sign a contract. And we put everything in there, like I won't, share nude photos, I won't, send whatever. And we said, your phone is not a right, it's a privilege, and we can take it away. So all this is in the contract, and we really sat down and explained what each one of those things meant. And I think it's really, really helped, because we go back to this contract, it's stuck on his mirror, and we go back to it a lot. So that's something that you might want to do to make a big deal, like, hey, you're getting a phone. This is a big deal for our family. It's really, really helped us. Yeah, and there's lots of examples, like you can Google kind of phone contracts for teens online and get many ideas. Like I got several ideas and did ours to put everything. Yeah, it's really helped, I think. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea because that'll make your kid feel like it's like a professional agreement, and that responsibility.
but at what age I should give the phone? That soon? 11?
I recommend end of 8th grade. That's like, and that's what everyone promotes.
There's a website called Wait Until 8th that has a lot of research about that, and so that would be an interesting thing to explore. Dima, thank you so much. Obviously, I think we could be here all day for questions, and I want to respect you. And I think everybody's going to be checking out your website, so thank you for this, and thank you for just the research you've done and everything that you're doing and putting into the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you.